Welcome to the Grief Pod with Venetia Quick. This is a weekly podcast which looks at every aspect of something which has or will at some point affect us all. And that is grief. Whether you've lost a loved one or about to lose someone you know, or perhaps you're simply trying to help someone navigate their grief and don't know where to start or what to say, then perhaps this is the podcast for you. Each week I'll be bringing you different stories and experiences of loss, love, hope and at times humour. On this week's episode I'm joined by one of Ireland's best known novelists, the award-winning Liz Nugent. Liz, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Now, all your readers will know that the core going through most of your books is a lot of loss and there's a lot of grief, and I want to sort of ask you about that in a while, about how you get those emotions so accurately onto the page. But first, would you maybe tell me a little bit about your upbringing, your childhood, and what shaped this sort of interest in
the darker side?
The darker side, yeah.
I don't really know what shaped it. I grew up in Dublin 4, don't shoot me. And we lived on the Sturgeon Road opposite UCD. I had four brothers and one sister. At the time, my mum and dad separated when I was about 7. I had a brain hemorrhage around I think the year before that, and landed on my head, lost the use of my right arm, and my right leg began to not function properly. So it was about 20 years later that I was diagnosed with dystonia. So that was kind of a physical disability that I had to deal with. And
was that as a result of the tumour? Is
no,
that how that manifested?
There was no tumour. It was a hemorrhage. I fell down the stairs and landed on my brother's bicycle in the hall. So
a freak.
Yeah, a freak accident.
Wow.
So, that happened, I think, the year before my parents separated. And, and so then I grew up, I suppose it was kind of lonely growing up in a family of 6, because I was like 4 years younger than my next brother and 5 years older than the youngest brother. So I didn't naturally have friends, and I went to school for some reason all the way out in Killiney. So I had no friends nearby in my area. I didn't, it was kind of lonely, yeah. So I think I found my comfort in books. Yeah,
because that was sort of like then,
and of
no
course,
iPads,
I was
no
spending
phones.
a lot of time in hospitals, so nowadays you just give a kid a phone and they'll be amused for hours, but in my day, it was just books.
Yeah. No, when you're in hospital at such a young age, and you're in for a long time, then that must have been lonely, because you were separated from your family and sort of the day-to-day of school. I didn't mind that so much, actually, because when I went in with the brain hemorrhage, I was, I think, 7 years old. And at the time, there was no CAT scan in Crumlin Children's Hospital. Wow. So my uncle, who was a GP in the UK, came over to visit me, and he said, you have to get a CAT scan, because he suspected what was going on, you know. And so I was moved to St. Vincent's Adult Hospital, and I was the only child in St. Vincent's Adult Hospital, because they had a CAT scan machine there and they could tell what had happened from the CAT scan machine. It had an extradural hematoma. But if I had stayed in the Children's Hospital, I probably would have died. Shocking, isn't it?
Yeah. And God knows how many children did die at the time for the lack of a basic CAT scan machine, which seems very basic to us now, because every hospital has an MRI machine now. But those were talking about back in the 70s, you know. Yeah. So I was born in 1967, so that would have been about 74, 75, thereabouts. So...
And did you find then coming out of hospital, and because sometimes if you've been in for a surgery or whatever for any amount of time and you come out of hospital, you can feel a bit displaced, you can feel a bit sort of out of sorts. So how was that for you, perhaps going back to school or seeing your friends, or did that take a long time?
Well, just to go back a little bit, you asked me if I was lonely in hospital. I wasn't lonely in hospital because all of the adults in the hospital and all of their visitors swarmed around me and bought me sweets, and I was absolutely spoiled rotten in the hospital. Coming out of it was difficult because, according to my family anyway, my personality changed quite a bit, and I had gone from a very happy-go-lucky kid into something different, and I was probably quite difficult and quite angry, or I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. But like you do. If you have a brain injury, it's very common to have a kind of personality change. I think that lasted for a few years before I came back to myself. So, yeah, it was difficult.
Yeah,
difficult time. And maybe that's where all the mad stuff came from that I wrote in the book. Yeah.
You lost your dad as well during, not of COVID, but during COVID.
Ago, November 2020.
And he was in a nursing home at the time.
Yeah, he had dementia. He didn't know that. He didn't know anything about COVID, and there was a 5-month period when we couldn't visit him at all, which broke our hearts, really. But by the time we could visit him, he hadn't missed us.
Wow.
Because he wasn't aware of what was going on. And when I eventually did see him again, I wasn't allowed to touch him. I wasn't allowed to kiss him. I wasn't allowed to do any of the things I used to do. I used to cut his toenails and stuff like that. I wasn't allowed to do that. I found that very difficult. But he did know who I was. He'd say, "Are you the writer one?" And I'd say, "Yeah." And he kind of said, yeah," but he didn't really have much language anymore. He found it like those, excuse me, those 5 months were very difficult for everybody, because we lost him.
Yeah, and I know from people who've come on the podcast and talked about dementia and the fact that you're grieving that person before they're even gone.
Yeah,
because
he was gone about, I'd say, about 9 months before he died. He didn't really know who we were. He might grasp at a name, but invariably get the wrong one, And so
you're there missing him dreadfully, but he was in one way oblivious to time.
He wasn't aware of it. He wasn't aware that he wasn't aware of his surroundings. He wasn't aware that he was in a home.
Yeah.
He'd been in a sheltered accommodation house that had a nursing home attached. So when his final hospitalisation, when he was his second final one, he was hospitalised after another heart stroke. We don't know. We never actually got to grips with. There's so many things that we just never knew because he wasn't able to tell us what had happened. And I think he had like a stroke or a heart attack, and he was brought into hospital, and then he was when he went back, he was taken into the home and not into his sheltered accommodation.
Okay.
So we had to clear out, my sisters had to clear out that house at the time. Because...
And that's an awful thing to have to do.
Yeah, that was awful.
Yeah,
I really appreciate them doing it. I was just out of hospital myself. Like, this all happened when I was in hospital. I had just had a horrific accident outside a friend's house, and I'd dislocated my kneecap and broken my tibia, and because of my dystonia I couldn't be operated on, so I had to lie in a bed with my leg in a kind of a brace for 3 months while all this was happening, while my dad went into hospital. And and then when I got out in January, the first thing I did was go and see Dad on crutches. And, well, I was on crutches and he was in bed. And I saw him as much as I could in between January and March when everything shut down. So, yeah, it was a tough time.
And then you've got the aftermath with COVID, because when people wanted to hold funerals and stuff, you could only have a certain amount of people.
Yeah, to be honest, I was kind of relieved in a way, because I think if I had to, we have a large family, like Dad had a second family as well, so I have 3 other sisters.
So there's 9.
There's 9 of us all together. So so if it had been a normal funeral, my 8 siblings would have had all of their friends coming and all of their colleagues, and
so it would be huge.
And it would have been a huge funeral, and I'm not sure I'd have been able to handle that at the time. So I'm kind of relieved that I didn't have to shake the hands of hundreds of strangers, and that it was a small, intimate funeral. But what I did appreciate very much was that after the funeral we came out, and there was all of these people who we didn't know, who I can only assume were members of AA, who Dad was a long time member of AA. He was sober for 40 years by the time he died. So he went to AA twice a week, every week, up till he had dementia and could no longer go. So he was a very beloved member of the local AA community in Athlone. So, there were lots of people from, and they introduced themselves and they said, your dad was a great man and he helped me and he did a lot and that was a whole side of him that we didn't know, that he had been able to help so many people. So it was great. That was an uplifting
and amazing. I was just about to say, because it's people that are there for him, not because they're friends of friends or related. It's a really genuine, not saying it isn't,
because I think there was only 17 of us in the church. You were allowed 16, but I think we squeezed in 17.
I think
and it was because his 9 children, their partners, my mum, his first wife, his second wife had died in 2015, which is heartbreaking for my sisters. She was very young when she died. She was only 63. Right. Dad was 85. So, and in the earlier part of that day, I was just so angry, and I had a row with one of my sisters. Completely my fault. I just said something completely awful, which I can never take back. And
well, we all say, I think it's the heightened stress. Like, I mean, it's a very complex time. So just your dad and all these people coming to
pay tribute,
support him and pay tribute, and it really, gives an idea of the sort of character that he was.
Yeah,
and what a lovely person he was.
When he was 10 years old, his mother died. And very suddenly, he went to school one day and he came home and she was dead. She had a burst appendix. And that killed her in 1945. And he was 10 years old. His father remarried within, I think, about 18 months. He and his brothers were shipped off to Roscommon to his mother's family. They had grown up in Dublin.
Wow.
To his mother's family.
So away from...
the Nealons,
Wow.
Away from his father and his school. And I think within 18 months his father remarried, and his new wife, his dad's stepmother said that she would look after the 2 younger boys, but not the 2 older boys. So
Just
my
can't
dad,
imagine that, can you?
yeah, my dad and his brother were shipped off to boarding school.
Yeah.
Which actually I thought at the time when I was writing Unravelling Oliver, I thought that they lived at the top of Booterstown Avenue, and that the boarding school they were sent to was Blackrock College.
Yeah.
So it was practically within spitting distance of where he lived, but in fact they had moved over to the Glasnevin side of Dublin.
Okay.
But anyway,
but he did go to Blackrock.
Yeah, he was sent to boarding school at the age of 10.
Wow.
And the only photo I have of him around that time is a photo of him and his 3 brothers standing beside a photograph of their dead mother. And this photograph must have been taken within the months after she died. And it's
I wonder
just,
what the reasoning behind that was, though.
I don't know. It just, you can see the anger in his face.
Oh, yeah.
Like, here he was, like the oldest of 4 boys, transported away from everything he knew, from the neighbourhood he knew, to, I don't know where that photo was taken.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know whether it was in his
But it's sort of a
father's house or
bizarre,
his-
it's just, you'd wonder what the thought, when you speak to a lot of people from, I guess, who lost a parent in that generation.
Yeah, of course.
Like, there's a lot of kids that were sent off. There's a lot of families that were broken up. But you sort of wonder where the empathy and the compassion was.
I wonder. Like, you just look at the youngest boy who's a year and a half
Younger. Yeah.
He must have been newborn when she died, you know. And, no, sorry, he was 18 months old when she died. So, and it was 18 months after that his father remarried. But you look at that tiny little boy, James, the youngest of them, and you just think, oh God, like those motherless children, and then having stepmother who says, well, I'll take the 2 youngest ones, but I'm not taking the 2 others.
But even for me,
I know.
Sort of having been in that situation where my kids were very young when they lost their dad, and you sort of go, like, the idea of suddenly finding somebody else to be your kid's parent is just...
Well, it was very common at the time.
No, no, I know. I mean, but still, it's hard to compute.
And often it was the next sister of the mother who, if there was any available sisters, they were
knocking around.
Yeah. And there wasn't, or certainly none who wanted to marry my grandfather. So I don't know where he found
his new wife.
Yeah.
But I read somewhere as well that your dad always wanted to be buried with his mother.
Yeah, that broke my heart.
I read that. I just actually
considering
I had to go back and see, did I read it correctly?
Yeah, considering he was 10 years old when she died, and when he was 80, you know, when my sister had the conversation with him, and he said, yeah, I want to be buried beside my mother. And you just think you haven't had any contact with this person for 70 years.
But that's where his...
Yeah, and 75 years it was by the time he died. It was 75 years before they were reunited.
And did that anger dissipate as he grew older? Or is that where, like you were saying, he was in AA?
I think it probably fueled his alcoholism and his depression. Because everybody thought, oh, when he gets into AA and when he gets sober, he'll be back to normal and he'll be fine. But he wasn't. Then his mental health issues became more evident, that it wasn't just the drink. Yeah. It was depression. And he suffered with that all his life up until, I'd say, when he was about 75. Now, my dad wasn't a religious type, but he was a spiritual type. And he never went to Mass, but he had a great faith in the Virgin Mary. And he would say, if he was here right now, if you asked him, what cured his depression, he would say the Virgin Mary.
Oh,
now,
really?
yes. Now,
is that sort of tongue in cheek? Or
I happen to think that it was probably that the medics finally got his medication right.
Yeah.
They got the balance right. Because he was on Seroxat and some other antidepressant medication. And he, you'd ask him, how much of that are you taking? And he would answer in terms of grains. Because that was the old measurement of, I'm taking 2 grains. And you figure that means milligrams. But he'd say, I'm taking 2 grains of that a day. And I don't know whether it's a low dose or a high dose or whatever.
Yeah.
But he was on antidepressant medication and he religiously took that.
Okay.
And I think... Well, maybe
that helped.
For those who believe, I think religion is fantastic for those who believe and those who have faith. It's huge comfort to them, and I'm not knocking it. I wish I had that kind of faith myself. I'm just far too cynical.
Yeah,
I wish I wasn't. Yeah. I really do, because
I think it's for everyone what they believe in and what gives them in times when they lose someone more comfort. It was interesting. I remember a friend who passed away, and he'd been very don't believe in any of that, don't believe it. And then actually close, it was actually the last time I saw him, and we were sort of having a little chat or whatever, and he sort of said, well, actually I do sort of believe there's something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's very much I think what helps each person. Yeah. And I think that's the way.
Whatever you believe, you believe.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't stop anybody. I wouldn't criticize anybody for their beliefs.
No.
As long as they don't try and force their beliefs onto everybody else,
Yeah.
But that Dad's faith was really important to him, and he got down on his knees every night.
Wow.
And said his prayers.
Wow.
On his knees beside his bed.
Wow.
Incredibly. Yeah.
Yeah. And for somebody who'd had such a loss.
Yeah.
So early on.
Yeah.
In his like as a little kid. Yeah. It's fascinating. So all that influence and I suppose what you bring to your books. Was there, you mentioned Unraveling Oliver there, was that that was your dad's story?
Yeah,
really,
although Dad didn't turn out to be a sociopath or a psychopath.
Yeah.
Oliver was. But in Unraveling Oliver, Oliver as a boy was sent to a boarding school at the age of 6. And I know there were boys who still are sent to boarding school at the age of 6, especially in England.
Yeah,
it's still done to children that young. And you just kind of go, how can you love your children and send them away at age 6? I don't understand it.
Yeah,
but anyway, that's what they did in those days, as Neil Hannon put it in that Divine Comedy song, "Woman of a Certain Age." Dad was sent to boarding school and not allowed home during holidays. Sometimes he was allowed home to Roscommon, to his parents' people, but he wasn't allowed home to his own house.
Which was in Glasnevin.
Which now was back in Blackrock, because they had moved back.
Wow.
And they were living in Mount Marion. And so
he could have walked up the road.
He could have walked up the road, but he wasn't allowed to come home. Yeah. So he lost any relationship he had with his 2 younger brothers. And the brother next to him also went into law. Dad was a solicitor. His brother was a barrister. But that brother, Peter, known as Father Andrew, ended up as a monk in Glenstraw Abbey. So you kind of think these men didn't know how to have families. Wow. And Dad managed to have 9 children without learning how to be a father. Yeah. He did his best.
Yeah, but he was never taught.
I know that, but he was never...
He never learned.
He never had an example of a father.
It's so sad because it sort of goes down through generations then as well.
The generational trauma of that must
And
have
did he talk to you when you were writing the book at all about childhood trauma?
No, he never talked about his childhood.
Wow.
Never. I asked his brother, James, who just died last year, I asked him about it, and he said it was a dreadful childhood in that house, growing up in that house. He said it was a very dark time. He didn't expand on it, and I didn't want to push him on it. But he said it was a very miserable...
You can imagine.
Miserable.
Did you feel you wanted to write that story?
No.
Sort of, was it in you?
No, but I remember the stories that were around that, and I, so I had Oliver spying on his half-brother using binoculars from the top floor of the school, So Oliver has a half-brother who grows up with his father in a house that he can see from the top floor of the school, and that's where he likes to spy, So I put that into a book, but that's just an imagining of what my dad might have done or might have felt, excluded from his own home.
Absolutely. And lost his mum.
Lost his two younger brothers.
Saying he doesn't really want him, to a degree, even though his dad probably thought he was doing the right thing.
The funny thing is, I did find among Dad's things a letter from his father to him when he was a very small child saying, Mummy and I have gone to London and we will be bringing home a present for you. Would you like blue or green? Or something like this. There's something really sweet about a letter that his father had sent him. So there was some love between them. I think it was just...
Maybe it's the trauma as well if he lost his wife or
maybe it was just the way things were done in those days, that a father could not be seen to bring up 4 children. And his father was a barrister as well. So kind of... It wasn't the thing to do to bring up 4 boys. So he had to get married fairly quickly, and I don't think that was a happy marriage, his second marriage. So who knows what went on.
Yeah.
It's a lot to explore.
In, like you were saying about one brother became, was monk.
Yeah.
And just sort of apart from the childhood trauma, the family trauma that goes with it, and how families can become sort of separated, I suppose, along that journey because everybody grieves in different ways.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's obviously something that, we have talked about. And I think that, in your dad's situation as well, like maybe his
I
brothers
had a very different relationship with my dad than my siblings had,
Would you have different memories of things or different, say there was something, would you interpret it, different interpretations of events?
Same events?
Yeah.
Not particularly that, but like my memory, I was 6 or 7. I can't remember the dates of what came first, my brain hemorrhage or Dad leaving. I think Dad was in the house when I had the brain hemorrhage, and when I came out of hospital, I don't know whether he was there or not, but I gradually realised that he wasn't around anymore. I was never sat down and told, your dad has left.
Yeah.
I just gradually realised he wasn't there and he wasn't coming home in the evening. Like, he'd go out to work and he wouldn't come home. But I think maybe that wasn't unusual because he was drinking at the time.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have been unusual that he wouldn't come home after work, you know. So I don't know. But then, so I have very few memories of him being at home, whereas my older siblings would remember him being at home, and they would remember probably drunken arguments.
Yeah.
Probably him breaking things or, not good memories. Whereas my memories of him are largely good ones. Largely good ones. I do remember him once smashing a glass against the wall at home when he lived at home. But that's the only time I ever saw him be really angry. And all of the other times, I remember I would hold his hand when we were walking, and right up until until I hit 50, just before he died, right up until then, I would hold his hand when we were walking anywhere. I'm sure people thought we were
no, it's so sweet.
A very strange couple. But but I held his hand when we walked anywhere.
Yeah, it's tactile.
Yeah.
What are the others through, your characters and through your books and the sort of the relationships, I suppose, that are shaped by grief?
There's actually somebody, Margaret Madden, who's done a study on funerals in Liz Nugent books.
Oh, really?
There are so many funerals in my books, and I just realised the one I've just completed, which is to be published next March, also has a vivid funeral in it. And there are funerals in all of my books.
Yeah.
Every single one has a significant funeral. And some of them are funny, like Sally Diamond's father's funeral, when it eventually happens, is kind of funny because she wears a red sparkling hat because he told her that hat was only for special occasions. So she thinks, oh, well, here's a special occasion. I wear the red sparkly hat. So there's kind of, funerals come up a lot. I think, even though I haven't been to that, well, I suppose the older you get, the more funerals you go to. And especially at this age now, I'm going to funerals of people my own age.
Yeah, has started.
That's heartbreaking. And funerals of my friends' parents. That's
sort of
happening
forget
a lot.
your own age.
Yeah,
and then you go, oh,
and as you go to these funerals, you realise, as my brother said, you're moving up the queue.
Exactly.
You're moving up further in the queue, and
But I think it's strange. I sometimes, because I knew 3 of my grandparents. So
you're so lucky.
Yeah, no, and I think that because I'm actually 2 of them to quite a late stage, till sort of 21 and 26 or 7 maybe. So like a good stint, And I always sort of think, because maybe you've had that generation in your life, then you feel like you're more removed, and then you lose a parent, and then it's sort of like, oh.
Yeah, I only had one grandparent. The other 3 had all died, or actually that grandfather, my father's father, lived for a year after I was born, but I have no memories of him, and I don't think he was a big part of our family.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's definitely a thing. What about your characters, though, as well, that I guess that you write and I become attached to them?
Yes.
And then they're going through their grief and their struggles.
Yeah.
How do you sort of, can you walk away from that? Or do you go, because I know sometimes when you interview people, and of course everybody's story is hugely impactful, but sometimes after I've talked to somebody, it takes a few days to just actually...
I've often been asked this, and I say, oh no, I just close the laptop and I walk away. But it's not... I do close the laptop and I walk away, and I don't think about them, until I open the laptop again. But it's not until maybe I've finished the book, or maybe it's a couple of years afterwards, that I really think about those characters and wonder about them. And I hope they're getting on okay.
Yeah.
You know, particularly Sally Diamond, you know, I really, really hope she's okay. And I've imagined a future for her where everything is okay. And I didn't put it in the book.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I should have, because a lot of readers are kind of annoyed at me that I haven't. But yeah, I've imagined a future for her where she is happy and she is settled and she has got all her friends back. And, you know, maybe I'll write that one day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I go along. I put my characters through a lot of trauma, and then I have them inflicting trauma on other people, and then I show the consequences of that trauma on the other people, and it's always generational. Yeah. It's always something that happened to a child that influences their decisions later on, that inflict trauma on another generation. And I think I have done that in every book. And
was that purposely?
No,
or was that...
I know. And it's only now when I think about it that it seems to have become a bit of a formula with me. But I don't go into it thinking, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think of the first line. I start with the first line and literally I go from there. And, you know, it's not deliberate. But in every
it's an interesting
instance,
study.
Yeah, it is.
You know, and it's probably something that should be explored more.
Yeah, I think generational trauma. I think Dad's childhood definitely influenced his inability to be a fatherly figure, you know, in the traditional sense. Even though he had 9 children, and even though I know he loved us all, he couldn't be there. He just couldn't be.
Didn't know how.
He couldn't maintain a relationship with the mothers of his children, and he didn't, like, he never, through the last 20 years, I don't think he ever rang me. You know, no, he never rang me, unless his computer was broken or something.
Yeah.
He never rang me to say, "How are you?" And then kind of realised he doesn't like talking on the phone, so he'd email me and say, "What's up?" or any news or something like that, and then I'd email him a long screed of what's happening in my life, and he wouldn't email back, but you know, he was keeping in contact that way, and when you'd meet him, conversation would be slow and but meaningful. You know, I suppose the last 10 years of his life, when I was saying earlier on that he put it down to the Virgin Mary that cured him of his depression, when he was, for the last 10 years of his life, he says he wasn't depressed at all, which was miraculous, because he had been suffering from severe depression up until that point. But he said one day it just lifted. And he said about 10 years before that he wanted to give up smoking, and he prayed and prayed to the Virgin Mary, and one day he just woke up and never smoked again. Never had a pang, you know. Whereas I had to take that drug, what's it called, Champix, to give up smoking. I know, and that worked for me. But that, I know that was chemically induced giving up. But it was a different way, different era.
Liz, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Grief Pod with Venetia Quick. You can listen on SoundCloud or wherever you get your podcasts. We also have an online community on Facebook, The Grief Pod, or on Instagram @GriefPod Series.